Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Riverhawk Roundtable. We are so excited for this new platform to bring you more stories about all the incredible things happening right here on the Hill. All of the music that you hear during today's episode was produced by our incredibly talented students. Today's funky intro and outro music was created by Fimi, a grade 10 student, and the loop you'll hear throughout the episode comes courtesy of Johnny, a grade 9 student. We have an incredible lineup of guests scheduled for this season, but we thought, what better way to kick off our show than an in-depth exploration of the past, present, and future of Rothesay Netherwood School. We are so fortunate to have our current head of school, Mr. Paul McLellan, as our special guest for today's episode. Mr. McLellan and his family have been at RNS since 1998, and during that time he has served in many different roles, which he will speak about. And in 2016, he became the head of school. I cannot think of anyone who cares more deeply about our community, our students, our employees, and our families than Mr. McLellan. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Riverhawk Roundtable. Today we have our special guest, Mr. McLellan, head of school. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Before we jump into learning a little bit about Rothesay Netherwood School and the history of the school, can you share a little bit about your personal journey in education and how you ended up here at RNS, and maybe discuss some of the different roles that you've had during your time here?
Sure. I'm from Cape Breton, which is in Nova Scotia, the next province over. And I would say as a student in school, I was a pretty typical student. I think had reasonable grades, was a pretty good kid, was involved in lots of things, played lots of sports. And I think through that process, I became interested in coaching. I became interested in teaching, I guess, eventually. So I would say that's kind of where it all began. I always had an interest in math science. They seemed to be courses or subjects that kind of came easier to me than maybe English or the humanities or the arts. So when I went off to school, I studied math and science. I kind of started in engineering and then moved towards math, and I ended up getting a major in math and chemistry. And from there, I wanted to go into education. It seemed to be the right path for me. I don't think I had the confidence or courage that the kids have today to explore different things, and I needed to get somewhere where I'd have a job and wouldn't be so dependent on my parents, and I'd start to make some money. So I went into education and earned a degree and applied for a job in northern Quebec. It was the first job I ever applied for in teaching, and I got the job. And then I found myself moving to a very desolate town in kind of on the, I guess I'd say it's across the Strait of Belle Isle. So if you went to the northwest part of Newfoundland and went across the Strait of Belle Isle, you'd end up in a town called Blanc-Sablon. And Blanc-Sablon is on the border between Quebec and Labrador. And if you go 70 kilometers west into Quebec, there's road. and we were about 150 kilometers west. And that's kind of where it started. My wife, Kathleen, went with me as well. So we both work there, and that's kind of where the journey began. From there, we were certainly interested in starting a family at some point, and being in a desolate town didn't seem to work. So we were hoping to move somewhere else. We applied for a number of jobs in around Montreal, and I ended up getting a job at Bishop's College School. So that was really my first introduction to independent schools. When I was there, I applied for a job here. And Rothesay happens to be halfway between Bishop's College School and Cape Breton, so it seemed like a perfect fit. And, we came here and we interviewed, and the rest is history, and that was about 28 years ago. So that's how we ended up here. And then the second part of your question around roles, I think I've had every role. I think I've had every single role in the school, and I love them all. They were mostly related to math science, so I taught math, I taught science, I became the department head of math. In 2003, 2004, I was asked to bring IB into the school, so that was something that I worked on, and as a result of that, I ended up becoming the assistant head. in 2004, I believe. And then in 2016, I became the head of school. So that's kind of a snapshot of our journey for the last 33 years or so.
We see you all over campus. We might see you in your office, we'll see you in the dining hall. Can you give us maybe like a typical day as a head of school and what it means to be a head of school at an independent school? I think a lot of people kind of walk by you or see you on your day-to-day and might have an inkling of parts of what you do, but I don't know that anyone really knows the whole scope of it. So can you give our listeners maybe just a snapshot at what a typical day of a head of school?
It's a really good question, especially in New Brunswick, because there are not a lot of independent schools. It's a growing sector. I mean, you'd probably be surprised to know that there's 15 or 20 in the province, but mostly younger kids. So we're certainly the only boarding school in New Brunswick, and it's hard to explain sometimes what it is, because is it a typical public school principal? Is it the CEO of an organization? It's kind of somewhere in between. I think what's different from a typical high school principal would be that all of the services associated with the school board are here. So we would do our recruiting, we would do finances, we would do marketing, we'd do fundraising. So all of those things are in-house. Maintenance, food service. So I think that makes it really different. So that's kind of the first point. I think it's a different job. And then the job is really, we have 105 people, 105 employees, and we have 333 students. And then we have all of the people associated with the students. So we're responsible for a pretty large group of people. And, that group multiplies each year. So year over year over year, that becomes a bigger and bigger group with your alumni base and with all the people involved in the school. So there's different parts to my job. The first part would probably be to kind of set the vision and strategy for the organization. I think any school like ours would have that. I think culture and expectations is another one. Safety and inclusivity is an important one. I think in a school like ours, that's a promise you need to make to families who are sending their kids to us. I have to represent the organization in all kinds of different cases. But in terms of jobs I have to do, I think I have to do all of the jobs. I don't think a job is too small. I think it's really important that I'm there for the community. I need to be present. That's a big job. I think I need to be willing to do anything I'd ask anyone else to do. And I have to be a really good role model. And I think that's part of leadership in any organization is being really aware of how the place works, being really involved, and striving to be a good role model.
That's fantastic. If you could protect 30 minutes to an hour of time every single day to do your favorite part of your job, what would it be? What would that 30 minutes to an hour look like?
Yeah, that would be pretty easy. It would be with the kids. The more I can get out of my office, the more my joy meter goes up, and the more everyone around me seems to be happier. I don't know if it's because my joy meter goes up or because I'm out of the office. But I do take those opportunities every day. So I'm in chapel every day that I'm here. And, I welcome kids on the front steps. Seems like a trivial thing, but it's really important to me to get to know their names and get to know the kids and get to know the activities they're involved in and just have some kind of dialogue with them when they come out. I get to be involved in chapel. I get to lunch most days. So they're really important times for me. The one that I wish I could do more of is getting to classes. So I tend to do a really good job with activities, kind of getting to see the kids either on stage or on the ice or performing in some way or another. But I'd like to get to more and more classes, and I have a goal at the beginning of each year to do it, and it's one that tends to fall off the table sometimes because I don't have time.
Absolutely. So Rothesay Netherwood School has a really rich history dating back to 1877 and its founding. But a lot has happened between then and now. So I'm wondering if you can give us kind of a snapshot of the school's history, some of the different names that it's gone by, how it went from being two separate schools, a boys' school and a girls' school, and merging to become the school that we have today.
Yeah, I think history is a really important thing, and I think you need to learn from your history. And when you've been around for, I guess it's now 148 years, so our 150th is coming up in just a couple of years' time. There's lots of stories, and there's some really good ones, and there's some that aren't so good. So I think that's the neat thing about history. What a lot of people wouldn't know about our school is that this is not the original location of the school. The school was located down by the Rothesay train station. And when it first started, it was called the Thompson School, and it actually was co-ed. So that's something that people wouldn't know about the school. I think it might have moved around a couple times in the early years, but then in 1891, the boys moved to our current site. So it was called Rothesay Collegiate School, obviously, and James Robertson owned the land, and he moved the school here in 1891, and it was just for boys. So in 1894, the Netherwood School for Girls came to be, and it was just down the road from us. And those schools both thrived for decades. And then I would say probably in the 70s leading into the 80s, I think the physical plants started to get tired. I think the finances were really tight. I think continuity in staff was a real issue. And both schools in around, well, it was 1984, had to decide whether they would stay open or not. And at the time, there was two separate boards. And the decision was made that the Netherwood School would close and that the RCS school would stay open. And if you can imagine, that's the boys' school staying open and the girls' school closing. So there's still people in our community who are bitter about that. And if you can imagine some of the people that were running the school at that time in terms of governors and directors, I mean, there was a lot of tension in the community. Rothesay is a pretty traditional, proud community, and that was a big deal, right? One school would go on and the other would not. And we're conscious of that today in terms of our uniform and our houses and our traditions. I mean, we're conscious of the fact that the girls' school is no longer here, and I hope we do a good job representing them and living on with some of their traditions. Two other dates that I think would be important. So in 1984, this became the school, RCS Netherwood. But in 1971, girls started coming up the hill. So they were coming up the hill for about 13 years prior to us actually becoming a co-ed school. So that's an important date. And then another important date in, I think it was 2001, there was a name change. So the school is now called Rothesay Netherwood School. And I think the determination, I don't know if this is true, maybe Mr. Kitchen told me this or some other people told me this, but RCS Netherwood, if you think about it, it sounds like a ship. And I think some of the people who were going off trying to sell our school when we became more of a boarding school and an international boarding school said, this is a real problem. Like, it doesn't say school anywhere in the name. So in the early 2000s, we changed the name to Rothesay Netherwood School, and I think that ended up being a good decision for us.
The idea of two schools merging, from my experience in learning about some other case schools, is not uncommon. But you mentioned this idea of really working to protect some of those traditions from each of those schools. Can you elaborate a little bit on ways in which, and the traditions that exist in our current school that celebrate and are really intentional about celebrating the history of both of those schools, while also helping to move us forward in the current school that we are today?
Yeah, probably the most obvious one would be uniforms. So the uniforms are pretty much the same. They've certainly changed in material, and there have been some adjustments over the years. But our girls still wear the Netherwood green, and the boys still wear the RCS blue. So that's certainly something that stood the test of time. I think our values have gone through some iterations so that they kind of encapture both schools. So, I mean, our current values are character, courage, creativity, and community. I think our inner houses kind of come from both schools. So York and Tudor and Stewart and Lancaster. I know lots of girls from Netherwood School who refer to themselves as Lankies and are still pretty excited when White House, Lancaster House at current RNS is leading the inner house challenges. So there's certainly some things that happen. And I think both schools had a deep sense of community. And I mean that in a few different ways. The first would be just the relationships amongst the students. There was a community of students. I think the same was with the adults, and I think between the students and the adults. I think there's lots of dimensions to that relationship. And I think also a sense of community, and maybe this came from Netherwood School first, but a sense of service to the community, I think, is something that's always been true of our school. So I think there are some great traditions that have certainly been brought from previous iterations of RNS to the school we have today.
That's wonderful. You have mentioned that you've been here for a fairly long time.
28 years, 28 years.
What are some of the most significant changes that you've witnessed at the school since you've arrived? And obviously they can be in physical buildings and different aspects like that, but also just maybe changes in the type of student that's here or changes in the needs of the families who are here. But what have you experienced in your 28 years here that has kind of shifted the way that the school operates or, the programming that we offer?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Thank you. Physical changes, obviously, right? So we came in 1998. So a lot of the buildings have changed. Walkways, roadways, trees, all kinds of things like that have changed. The people have certainly changed. So, I mean, when we arrived at this school, there's probably only 3 or 4 staff who were there at the time. And as I said earlier, I think we have 105 staff now. So 100 have changed. So that's pretty significant. The values I mentioned earlier, the character, courage, creativity, and community, I don't think that's changed. Like, I think as much change as there's been over the years, I think there's still lots of similarities. The type of student we attract. If you were to go back in our history, especially on the RCS side, this was a school that produced military leaders. So there was a real element of military in the school. And I'd still like to think we have structure and discipline, and I know there's some alum that still have hard feelings about the fact that we don't have cadets, but we're not that school anymore. Like, I think over time, you have to change and you have to adapt. I think we've done a reasonable job there. What's interesting to me, though, I would say over that whole time, the profile of the student that succeeds here, I would say, hasn't changed a whole lot. So I think there was a time, certainly before, where you had to go to RNS. There was no conversation about it. I think we still have some kids who have to come to RNS, but for the most part, it's their choice. And it's important to us that it's their choice. And I've had that conversation with families all kinds of times. Like, I realize where you are right now in the conversation, but before they come, it needs to be their choice. And I think when students can commit to that choice and they can be open to a change and open to everything this school has to offer, I think they can do pretty remarkable things. I think the most important part about a student coming here is, 1, wanting to come. 2, I think having the courage to try new things, to accept new things, to get involved in new relationships. And I think if they can do that, and maybe beyond that, to have a bit of a growth mindset, but if they can have the courage to embrace that idea and embrace the community of support that is available here and take advantage of the opportunities here, I think they can do pretty amazing things. And we see evidence of that all the time. So that's a bit of a long answer to your question, but that's kind of where my mind went.
No, I appreciate that. And one of my questions that I think is always really fascinating to consider is when you're speaking with a prospective family about why they should choose RNS, and what does a student need to know to be ready to embrace the opportunities here at RNS? What is that message from you to those prospective families?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I sometimes get criticized by the enrollment team for my answer to that question because I like to be pretty frank with families about who we are and about what we do. And it doesn't always fit. It doesn't always fit. Like, I don't think everybody is ready, or I don't know if this is the right place for everybody, which I think is fine. I think my commitment to a new family would be that we will surround your child with people who work really hard, who care for them, who will spend a lot of time with them, and will work really hard to find experiences that are right for them. And I think it's so much about students willing to take some risks, willing to try some new things, willing to trust others, willing to take feedback. Becoming part of a community is sometimes a really hard thing to do, especially if you're new or you're introverted or there's challenges around language. There's all kinds of reasons why it's difficult. But it seems to us that the kids who can immerse themselves in our community tend to be the most successful. So I think when I'm talking to a family, I'll talk to them about the opportunities that are available here. And I'll talk about how hard we will work to try to help the student uncover or find those opportunities. Then it's really up to the kids. I think the kids need to, they just need to work really hard. They need to get involved with the things they want to be involved with. They need to be encouraged to no end. That being said, there needs to be structure. There needs to be expectations. And kids never cease to amaze me. Like, they rise to the challenge all of the time. And sometimes they're not confident enough to do it. And sometimes their parents aren't confident enough to let them do it. But time and time again, they seem to be able to make things happen. And in a community like ours, I mean, you hear the expression all the time: a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's a little bit about what we're about. I mean, I think it's okay to strive for more. It's okay to want to do more. I think it's okay to fail as long as you get up. I think all of those things are part of education, and sometimes they're lost on people. Like, sometimes people are so focused on getting the highest grade or getting to the right place that they miss what an education is all about. And I think we provide a pretty good education at RNS.
Yeah, and I think that you touched on a couple of things that for me are really special about our school, is just this idea that students really aren't passively experiencing their education. It's them who's really deciding to drive and steer different aspects of their experience here, which is so valuable. And then when they get to the end, they feel so much more proud or so much more accomplished because they've been the ones who've been making some of those decisions for themselves.
Even if you look at our mission, like, our mission really has three parts to it. And the first part is creating that environment, a safe, inclusive, welcoming, supportive environment. And the second part is the students kind of developing the confidence and skills to make choices and hopefully pursue passions. And then the third part of the mission is the giving back. And that can happen pretty easily in our school. There's lots of opportunities to give back, daily opportunities to give back. And then hopefully we would like our kids at some point, when they're ready, to start giving back to the community. And our senior kids, I think they log over 10,000 community hours a year, going out doing different things in the local community. And I think that's awesome. Yeah. Like, that's living. That's the pursuit of happiness or success or passion or whatever that might be.
So when we think about the school currently, in the current climate, what is it about the school, whether it's the people, the culture, the mission, the history, what is it that inspires you every day to continue to do? You listed all of these things that you have to or get to do as part of your job, but obviously there's an inspiration and a why under all of that. What is it that allows you to kind of continue to do this work day after day, year after year?
Good questions, Miss Blackmore. It's the people, absolutely. I think we are a school that are pretty focused on providing opportunities for our kids. I think that's a clear, singular kind of mission of the school. But it's definitely the people. It's being able to see our kids grow and develop, being able to see our kids perform in a myriad of activities. Being able to see our kids get knocked down and get back up, being able to see year over year growth. Like it's definitely the people, and that's just focusing on the students. I think the other thing that's really special about our school is there's some amazing adults in our community, absolutely amazing. I see what they do on a daily basis, and it's inspiring. Whether it's a coach of a team, a director of a play, a TOK teacher, a house parent. There's just so many examples of really good modeling, really caring people, really dedicated and supported staff. So I think it's the people. That's certainly the biggest driving force for me. And I talk a lot about culture, and sometimes I get some flack for that. But the culture is really about the people too. It's about people kind of working together. It's about people believing in more. It's about the idea of continuous improvement. It's about the idea of kind of punching above your weight. It's about all of those things. It's also about standards and expectations. It's about hard conversations. It's about doing things, not just not doing things because they're hard, but doing them because the school means so much to you and the future of the school means so much to you. So it's, I think it's a combination of those things. I think every organization needs a mission, and I kind of iterated hours earlier. I really feel like there's three parts, and it's very much focused on our kids.
Yeah, and this leads to my next question, but there's this growing trend and I think conversation happening around well-being, both for students and employees, workload, balance. And a lot of what you've mentioned is hard work. There's a lot of hard work that goes into being successful as a student or as an employee here. How does the school continue to offer a rigorous and challenging program where students are pushed out of their comfort zone and challenged to take risks, while also providing that support and balance to care for their well-being?
Well, I think that's the magic question, Ms. Blackmore. That's tough, right? Like, I think that's what every independent school is trying to do. They're trying to strike that balance, and it hasn't always been right. I don't know if it's right now. We're taking some pretty significant measures to try to get it right. And it's funny when I talk to people about that balance, there's some people that'll say, well, you're not going to become, not everybody's going to get participation ribbons, I hope. Like, that's not the school you're going to become. Like, I expect rigor. I expect challenge. I expect hard work. I want a work ethic to come out of this education. And I think we're committed to the exact same thing. I mean, we want all of those things too, right? Like, ideally, we want our kids to grow and develop as much as they possibly can. And we'd like them to go off to the next stages of their educational journey ready. And we want them to become fulfilled adults at some point, right? And there's all kinds of different aspects to that. So that's pretty exciting for us, but the well-being part is very, very important. I worry about our kids. I also worry about our adults. There's some who just work too hard. And it's really hard to rein that in. It's really hard to create balance amongst the group. It's really hard to create balance for the individuals. I'm pretty excited about a program that you're involved in, actually, the Challenge Success program that we're bringing to RNS this year. This is our first year. The Challenge Success program is associated with Stanford University, the Graduate School of Education, and that's a program that's focused on well-being, right? Student well-being primarily, but I have no doubt that it's also going to affect the adult well-being, which is as important to us. But we're really excited about that program. It's the first year, and with that program, we ended up putting together a committee of students and teachers and parents and governors. There was a PD workshop outside Boston in the fall. We sent a number of people there, and then since then, I mean, they've done some surveys, they've done shadow days. We have a coach who was here just this week for a couple of days. So we're putting in the good work to try to figure out the balance, but it's not easy. It's not easy. So it's something that we will continue to work on. You need to listen to your kids too, and the adults. So it's hard. It's hard. I think it's fun, but it's hard.
And I think the Challenge Success program, one of the things that has been really impressive, I think, this year was engaging those conversations with students, but going both ways. It wasn't just about listening to the students, but it was also about making sure that the students could hear the perspective of the staff and the mission of the school and really engage in a more thoughtful conversation. You know, instead of we have too much homework, let's take away all the homework. It was really engaging in discussions around how could this be more manageable for you, and what skills do you need, and what do your teachers need to hear, but also what are some skills that the students need to have to be able to manage this.
I think our kids would be pretty upset with me if I didn't say that I'm acknowledging that we have too much homework, and there's probably some adjustments need to be made to make that more manageable. I think another factor, Kayla, is that kids are just so busy. And they're involved in so many things, right? So we build a really robust, comprehensive program with the assumption that all of those things happen here. But still, there's kids leaving our school. They're doing tutoring. They're doing activities like swimming and horseback riding outside of school. They might be doing sports outside of school. They might be doing music lessons. So there's just so many things happening that the balance goes beyond the school, right? So we really need to partner with parents and try to figure that out as well. Because there comes a point for our kids when it's just too much. And I think we need to work together to try to figure that out.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to move forward into the future. And we're at an exciting moment with kind of the development of a new strategic plan. It may not be in full form to be released yet, but are there some exciting elements to that new strategic plan that align with some of the current challenges that the school is facing, or highlighting some real opportunities that are present for schools like ours in today's day and age?
That's a big question, Ms. Blackmore. We're certainly in the middle of a strategic plan, and I think a strategic plan gives you an opportunity just to take a step back and think about, who it is that you want to be as a school. And something I've been thinking a lot about, there was a book I read about 20 years ago by Jim Collins, and it's called Good to Great. And it's always stuck with me. So I would ask the question, like, how can RNS become great? And that's something that I've kind of been pushing throughout this whole strategic planning process. And we have a wonderful committee, and we've had input from all kinds of different stakeholders. And we're developing strategies that I think will make us better. Typically in the strategic planning process, the strategies are in 4 buckets: programs, people, place, and permanence. So that's kind of the categories that they fall into. The program ones is probably most exciting when it comes to kids, and I think our premise to those programs is that they need to be transformational. So the experience in the classroom needs to be transformational. The experience in the residence needs to be transformational. The experience on the basketball court. needs to be transformational, as well as in the art department needs to be transformational. So there's certainly some things we're working on. I don't know if we're at the end. There's still some work to do. But we have a pretty committed group of people who believe in the school and love the school. It's made up of directors and governors and senior administrators. So we're pretty excited that we'll get somewhere that leads the school to a better place. I mean, we're continually looking for opportunities to invest in our programs, to invest in our facilities. I can't really say a facility that's something that we need to focus on, but a big thing would be making sure our facilities are in good condition, continuing to reinvest in those facilities. There are some of the elements that are happening with the strategic plan. Another part of the strategic plan that's really challenging in 2025 is the finances. So, I sit here knowing that it costs a lot of money to go to school at RNS. And, you don't want to have an exclusive school, but you do. There's people who can't come here. And we feel like we do a pretty reasonable job with our scholarships and bursaries to go out and find kids to come to our school. Our scholarships and bursaries probably make up about probably 12% of our annual operating budget. So it's pretty significant. And we're pretty excited about that, but it's tough. It's tough, right? So that's something we need to be aware of. I think the last 5 years have created some financial challenges too. Geopolitical is a term that we certainly all know well now. And that's not just from COVID, but that's the recovery from COVID, and that's some things happening south of the border. Like there's all kinds of factors there that we need to be conscious of, and we need to be working towards. And we'll continue to do so. I think some of the other challenges facing schools like ours, you identified mental well-being, huge challenge for the students and the adults. I think we need to be conscious of that. We need to be creating opportunities for both groups to get the support they need. That's a big one for us. I think, something like deferred maintenance, when you have a school that's been here over 100 years, keeping those buildings not only up to code, but in a condition that we can be proud to have them. You have to be looking at roofs and windows and infrastructure and controls and things of that nature. So that's something we're always kind of pedaling away at, but that's fun. I mean, that's part of the job. I guess that's part of your first question. What does the head of school do? I think I have my hands in all kinds of things, and I always like to see that people say, well, it must be cool. I mean, the power you have as a head of school. Yeah, I don't feel like I have any power. I have a whole lot of responsibility, and I try to help people deal with things that are sometimes challenging, but I don't know if power is the right word.
Yeah, but probably very comforting at times to sit back and know that the work you're doing will hopefully live on for future generations, for students to be able to enjoy this experience.
If I could just comment there, if you wouldn't mind too. I'm privileged to be in the seat I am with this school that's been around for 148 years. And this school was built on the backs and shoulders of people long before me. I certainly said that Kathleen and I have been here for 28 years, but that work started long before. And there's still people really connected with the school who were part of that experience in 1984. It wasn't good. There's still people in the town who don't talk to each other because of that. So it wasn't great. So we're pretty lucky that there have been a lot of people who've put in a lot of hard work and made financial sacrifices for this school to be where it is. Some of the leadership people. I mean, Paul Kitchen before me was here for 29 years, and all those folks before him. Like there's lots of people who have got us to where we are today. It's not magic when you come on the hill and see what you do. That's really because of the efforts of those before us, for sure.
Yeah. And I think because of some of those contributions, that's a message that we try to often iterate with our students is to leave this place better than you found it, and to contribute in some way that might be lasting for the next generation.
What a great comment that is, though. Leave it in a better position than it was when you received it. And I think that's the ultimate gift to everyone before you and to the future generation.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
If you were to imagine our school in 10, 15, 20 years, what do you hope it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could run into all kinds of traps with not defining some of these words, but I would hope that it would be, if not the best, one of the best schools in Canada. I think that's a real option for this school. I think the blueprint is in place. I think you have the staff. I think you have the kids. I think you have the programs. I think you have the parental and community support. Everything is in place. And I think as long as we continue committed to continuous improvement, continually commit to investing in the right people, in the right programs, I think that will be true. And my wish for this school would be that in 148 years, it's still here and thriving. And I think that would be an incredible thing. I mean, this opportunity or privilege that we have at this school is for a period of time. But I hope that RNS will live far beyond that.
It's fantastic. And I heard this great question on Why Boarding School podcast with Dr. Jeffrey Quebec, and I'm going to steal it. But is there one tradition here that you hope always continues?
Wow. I wish I could have saw that question in advance. The tradition that always continues. One tradition that's really near and dear to my heart would be the tie tradition in opening chapel. So if you don't know what that is, each year we welcome a new group of students into the school. So it could be upwards of 120 students. And when they arrive for the opening chapel service, they do not have ties. And everyone else in the community has ties. So we talk about when we give them their ties on that evening with their advisors present. We talk about, now that you have a tie, you're a full and equal member of our community. And I really think our kids believe that. Like, I think even our oldest kids would say, yeah, like, now you have a tie, so you have the same access to things in this school as I do. And I think it's a really wonderful thing, and it's sometimes hard for parents to grasp when it's happening. But I really believe that. Like, once you get to put that tie on day one, regardless of whether you're 11 or 18, you have access to everything here. And I realize that it's not quite like that. You have to have the confidence. You have to have all those things. You have to have the resources to get some of that access. But it's a really neat thing, and I think that tells you a lot about our school. I'd like to think there's certainly cliques in our school. There's kids who like all kinds of things. I mean, this school is made up of teenagers like every other school in North America. But I'd like to think it's a little bit different. I'd like to think there is a sense of community. I'd like to think that there are equal opportunities for everyone. There's still work to do there for sure, but I think as long as we're striving for those things, I think the school community will be in good hands for a long time.
And we're nearing the end of our conversation, so I do want to say thank you so much for your time. But before we go, we're going to have one question that we're going to ask every guest this season to wrap up, and that is, what is it that you would say is the secret ingredient or the special sauce that makes RNS unique and exceptional?
I think I might have answered this earlier, so I worry about repeating myself, but it's definitely the people. Absolutely. Living in the place we do, I think our school in the Kennebecasis Valley in New Brunswick, I think, is a really special place in the world that I don't think everyone quite understands. But I mean, being able to go to work every day when you're surrounded by 330 kids and their energy and their enthusiasm and their commitment to kind of growing and developing, I think that's an amazing thing. And I think when you layer on top of that a group of dedicated adults who commit their lives really to the education of these kids. And you start to think about, the relationships that build our community. You start to think about the continuous improvement that we enjoy as an organization. You like to think of the partnerships with parents and people who are helping you along, donors, governors, directors. There's just so much there. It's definitely the people. Absolutely.
I also want to ask, what are you most grateful for?
Yeah, my answer would certainly be similar to the last question. It's the people. I mean, since Kathleen and I arrived here 28 years ago, we've been embraced by the community. It's been a really special place. We've had the good fortune of having 2 kids who grew up here. Both kids went through the whole school, all 7 years. That's probably the biggest gift that we could ever be given in our lives. So I'm just grateful for the way we've been welcomed, the way we've been supported, and the way we've been lifted up by the community. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Once again, I want to say thank you to our guest, Mr. Paul McLellan, head of school at Rothesay Netherwood School, for joining us on this week's show. On the next episode, we sit down with our head prefects, Rainer Glenn and Tia Fung, to hear about their personal journeys at RNS, and we dive into their experience as young leaders in our community. This week's Student Spotlight is grade 10 student Jerry. This piece is called Just the Two of Us by Bill Withers and Grover Washington Jr. It is a smooth jazz love song released in 1981. Today, Jerry will perform a solo of this piece on the alto saxophone. Enjoy this tune, and until next time, remember to keep working hard, be kind, and look after one another.